go-to-meeting type presentation with a mentor. And do it that way. And so that way you've got a broader access across the country to some very specific need.
That's how coaching is being done these days. There's Zoom. There's so many different
Well, you even have Facebook Live. That's free.
Facebook Live.
Right.
We do that within groups. Yeah, exactly. So technology definitely is involved now with being able to have that outreach.
Right.
Here's a few little tidbits just to get the breadth of what the organization is. Last year in 2016, there were over 303,000 mentoring sessions conducted nationally.
Wow.
There was over 119,000 online educational workshop attendees. So this is not a small organization. This is an organization that serves to grow small businesses across the country. And over 54,000 new businesses were started last year.
And when you talk about the small businesses that are starting, I don't know the exact resource. I was just I'm always doing market research online, but I came across that by 2020 that over half of the small businesses are going to be your entrepreneurs. Whether they're an individual consultant, but our entrepreneurs are actually realizing that it'd be more to their advantage if they just take and start their own business.
Well, you've got the corporate side of the equation there, and it's gotten so expensive to provide benefits for people.
Correct.
Amongst other things, that they're outsourcing. My son out in Austin, Texas, worked for a financial institution that was basically outsourced for I don't know how many years he worked for.
Headquartered out of
6, 7.
Right.
Yeah, they were out of London. Yes.
Well, with you read every day of something about automation. Automation has taken over a lot of industry, and it's not just the robotics on the shop floor, but it's now is the business analyst, financial analyst. A lot of that activity has been replaced with some automation, and they've reduced the levels of work there. But you've always got. I read something just this morning that for every automation job that gets replaced, there is one other type of job that gets created, and maybe even two. So looking forward as to what happens with these displaced workers, again, entrepreneurship is where that's going to be. I like to think that basic economics still revolves around three things. You have to eat, you have to shelter yourself, and you have to be clothed. And so those three basic needs, human needs, are still going to drive economies. So just because you've replaced a factory worker to run a machine, if you look at all of those machines and all of those moving parts, something's going to break.
They're going to break at some point in time. You're absolutely right, and they got to be fixed. So it's a shift, not as much as it is downsizing.
Correct.
Because we both used to be corporate employees.
As did we.
And, we found life a whole lot better on this side of the world being coaches and consultants than we did having to report to a boss.
And it was a scary feeling for me. I mean, I was raised in a family where my folks owned their own business and such, but I had never thought ever of owning my own business. So I know when I started working with Richard, this was even before we were married, I could not give up that full-time job. I had a full-time job plus working for him, plus I did some commission work. As a single parent, I wanted to make sure everything was always, had those benefits and all those fun things. And it was really a transition for me to finally trust myself. And what it finally took was we actually took ourselves and invested in some knowledge out in San Diego. This is how after we'd actually sold our IT company and had closed down our web agency, because we were very involved in the builder industry back in those days, and kind of reinventing ourselves and what we wanted to do. So we invested and went out to San Diego. And at that time, it just hit me, either create a business or pretend that you're creating a business. In other words, is it a hobby or are you going to actually go for it? So I took the plunge. I jumped off that cliff, and it was just like keep getting scraped, but
and that's what the SCORE mentors are here to do, to be there for those particular decision points and to act in a non-judgmental fashion as a support system. And that's one of the things that's I think differentiates SCORE from a lot of other mentoring and mentoring institutions is that we have a predefined methodology called SLATE. And I think, George, you can probably describe
Yes.
SLATE a little bit more, that all of our mentors are trained in so that there is a uniform approach to the mentoring session.
Yes, SLATE stands for, it's an acronym, stop and suspend judgment, listen, analyze, teach with tools, and then set expectations and encouragement. So that's the basic premise that our mentors come in on is, you know, people come in and, you know, they've heard all the naysayers and everybody's been downtrodden them, you know, oh, you're crazy to try this and so forth and so on. Well, when they come in and they talk with one of our mentors, first thing I don't say anything when I have a client come in. I just listen. So what's your idea? And then if they usually have a hard time getting started saying something, but then you facilitate the discussion, you ask a couple questions, and then give them a chance. And then once they get going, then all of a sudden that enthusiasm comes back in as to why they wanted to venture off and do this. And then they just go on and on and on. And so then you listen very intently. I listen very intently and listen to what it is that they're trying to do, and then listen to what they're not saying. Listen for all the things where they haven't thought about, and most people don't think about all the costs involved. So the first thing I normally do is okay, listen to what they're good, and I says, okay, now what is this going to cost you to get it forward? But I won't elaborate on that. But then that's where the analysis comes in. And then just start analyzing their approach to what they're trying to do, and then just brainstorm with them. And then teach. I provide some, if you look at our website, there's a tremendous amount, not just webinars, but there are also a lot of templates and spreadsheets that you can download. And again, there's no hooks in the downloads. It's spreadsheets or Word documents, pre-formatted business plans, cash projections, forecasting. What else is there? Just a whole lot of tools out there that you can just download and start with. And so we teach with those tools, and then set the expectation that there really aren't shortcuts to doing business, as you all know. When you go into business, there's a set number of things that you have to do, and you have to do those things religiously, and there's the parts that aren't fun.
That is
There's
so
the
true.
aspects that aren't fun. But that's what our mentors do. We interject, we do that, put that out there, and then get caught up in their enthusiasm. I'm getting a little enthusiastic now just thinking about the clients that I've done. Because,
I can tell you're
because they
passionate
can-
about it, and I see you run our meetings, yeah.
The enthusiasm is contagious.
And that's what provides a rewarding experience not only for our clients, but also for our volunteers. Also knowing that all of this conversation is held in deep confidence. And that if you have an idea, and it's a new idea, a volunteer mentor is not going to run off with it. It's going to be safe with your SCORE mentor.
And that's very comforting to know that for those business individuals that come to you knowing that they're maybe sharing some very tough stuff, that they're going through, because nobody wants to admit that they aren't doing it all correctly.
Right.
I mean, it's hard, but being in business for as long as we have, tell me, we're on a roller coaster a lot of times, and we have had some tremendous successes, and we've also had some really crappy failures, but we've picked ourselves back up.
That's a good point about the failures. Is one of the things that I've been looking at a lot of classes and that they're online. There's a lot of training available online, not just from SCORE, but from a lot of different sources. Right. But one of the aspects that is out there today that they're pushing is don't be afraid to fail. And it's, you're going to have a number of failures.
Exactly.
And those are the ones that you learn from.
Yeah, let's just go back in our own locale here. Let's go back and look at the space program back when it got started in the early '60s. How many failures were there before everything came around the way it is?
Right, and they knew they were going to blow some up.
Oh yeah,
just don't give up.
But now it happens, but it's more of a rarity than it was way back when, because the educational process was in place where every time something happened, it was analyzed, like you were talking about, find out what's happening, why it's happening, and then go solve the problem.
Correct.
So do you also have some small business and entrepreneur individuals and businesses, people that actually are already in business that come to mentor with SCORE?
Oh, yes. I was
Not
trying to
just the
figure
news.
out how to segue into that.
Because,
to
yeah,
make
I was
that
like,
point.
yeah.
To make that point is that, yes, we are not just about assisting startups or people with
Okay.
new ideas that aren't in business, but existing businesses. We've had several clients, as a matter of fact, that we work with. We have one right now we're working with some financing. Carla and I did some mentoring with a local contract manufacturer. They were struggling around ISO certification and HR issues. They were a small company, 5 years.
It's how to go to the next step.
I
So
like
if
that.
you're a business and you need to take it to the next step, you want to grow, but you're not exactly sure how to get there. That's where SCORE mentors can come into play and help them, because it's about charting a path forward. It's not just about, well, I'm going to double my sales. How do I get from point A to point B?
Yeah, and that happens. I mean, in all businesses, you reach a point that you know that you need that resource. You need somebody else to step in that's going to look at maybe from a different view and see things differently, because we tend to see things right in front of us and not.
Richard, what was your comment earlier? If you're not growing,
You're either green or growing, or you're ripe and rotting.
Right.
And, that sounds like just a blanket statement, but it's actually a cycle. It's actually a cycle of growth, because once you master something, somebody else is going to master it, and now you're looking for a new competitive edge. So now you have to look for that growth spurt, and everything just keeps evolving from there. But that's what makes, to me, that's what makes entrepreneurship and small business fun, because we can all turn on a dime. Try to get IBM, Exxon, Mobil, GM to turn on a dime.
that
Not
doesn't
going to happen.
happen.
Not going to happen in the next decade. They can't. There's too many moving parts that you can't corral.
But what they do though is some of the big boys, when they want to have something strategic happen or something innovative happen, they will either one go out and buy a small business, or they will take a few senior executives, put them out there and force them into a small business, make them develop a business.
Yes, they do. And, that's the whole purpose of mergers and acquisitions,
Yes.
Bring the new ideas, bring that energy, that excitement, that passion back into it, where there's a new area to develop and work on and grow.
Well, I want to remind our listeners that if you have any questions at all for our in-studio guests today, George and Carla, and again, we're talking about SCORE and the great resource that it is here for our community. But if you have any questions at all, please do go to So Social Radio Show on Facebook and just put it in the comments of that top pin post, and we'll do our best to get to that question for you today. But I know that have had some people want to know about what the big event is happening. And I know that, so let's talk about our upcoming BizFest and share with our audience exactly how they can get involved there.
Absolutely. Well, one of the exciting things that's coming up is the first week in May is National Small Business Week. And there are currently about 27 million small businesses in the United States. 15,000 of them are located here in Brevard County. So small businesses make up about 99% of all of Florida's employees. I didn't know that.
No, I didn't know
It's
that.
an amazing
That is,
fact.
Yes, it is.
But anyway, small businesses are celebrated during National Small Business Week. And in honor of that, SCORE, our Space Coast chapter SCORE, is going to host our third annual BizFest event. And it's going to be celebrating small businesses. The event's going to be held at the Space Coast Convention Center on Tuesday, May 2nd, from 10:30 a.m. to 5:15 p.m. And the Space Coast Convention Center, that's the Holiday Inn. It's located just off of I-95 and 520. That exit right there.
Real easy to get to.
Oh, we are so excited about this event because our keynote speaker is going to be Carol Craig, CEO of Craig Technologies.
I've had the pleasure of listening and hearing Carol a number of times over the years, and what really excites me, knowing that this is the expo for entrepreneurs, is her story about how she started as an entrepreneur and where it has led